Welcome to the Church Sound Podcast, part of the Repurpose Network, where kingdom culture, real life, and technology intersect. I'm your host, Prentice Thompson, and what we do? We talk to real people, pastors, leaders, engineers, tech people, manufacturers, worship leaders, all about church, technology, and provide solutions for a successful Sunday morning service. You ready? It's time to take a ride. Let's go. Yes, welcome to another edition of the Church Sound Podcast. I'm your humble host, Mr. Prentice Thompson, and I always like when you guys applaud, even though I created it myself. I make myself feel good, and hopefully you're clapping along. Hopefully you're not driving. Don't do this when you're driving on a treadmill. Yeah, if you got good balance, you can clap. But otherwise, I just want to say thank you for tuning in. We got a great show today. I always say that, right? Did I say that again? We say it again. We got a great show today. And I have a great guest. And so you won't be hearing my voice alone today. Some of you are probably saying, like, this guy can really, really talk. And so get used to it. And so today we're going to talk about content creation and why and how that applies. So important. I'm pretty sure that everyone here has Instagram. My guest is an avid LinkedIn enthusiast. Avid LinkedIn enthusiast. And so I want to bring to the program right away Alesia Hendley. She is business development, multimedia journalist, content creator. She's the host of the Crash Pad. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Prentice, thank you for having me, man. I'm so glad we met not too long ago. I love the vibe of your show. The music is jamming. It's good vibes. So I'm happy to be here.
The crazy thing is that, being in the MI industry, you'll get this immediately. Okay, I'm going to say this very succinctly. You don't see many of us.
True.
There it is. And those of you who don't understand what we're saying, go to the YouTube channel and just look at the screen.
Right, and just look at the screen.
Pay attention. Look at the screen. Thanks. Hey, I thank you because you're a woman who wears many hats.
Yes.
And the funny thing, I'm on your LinkedIn page, right? And I watched this video, and then you know how you go to mutual friends, and I found some 4 or 5 people that I know personally that we know.
Nice, man. There's always a connection.
Tim Brown.
Shout out to Tim.
Brown. Tim Brown hired me at Sam Ash back in the day.
Man, the industry is small,
Yeah.
It's small. But once you know the right people, network, and that's how we evolve. Yeah. That's how we, lift each other up.
Right. I remember it. Like, I remember walking into Sam Ash and him handing me a quiz. Like, I just happened to walk in off the street and he handed me a quiz and he was like, this guy says you know a lot of stuff. We was talking about a customer. The customer told him, this guy knows a lot of stuff. He handed me a piece of paper. I took the test. He hired me. And that's how I got in this business.
Hey, it changed the game. Opportunity is everywhere. As long as you stay ready, you don't got to get ready. You was ready in that moment.
There it is. There it is. So tell me, how did you get into this crazy business that we're in? What's the journey?
I guess the journey started in church for me, like many people you probably have on this show, right? My dad was a pastor. Before he took over a church, he was the sound guy. So when he was moving up, I was like, well, hey, teach me the board. And at this time, I don't even know what brand it was, but it was like, those box boards where you just had a bunch of knobs and it was like this fuzzy black boxing on the back. It was just weird, right? But that was technically like my first encounter with sound. And it started off small. It was like us and family. And then by the time, maybe between the ages of like 13 to 16, we didn't have necessarily a mega church, but we had a good sized church where we were doing full production, right? We were streaming, we were doing CDs, cassettes, all of that evolved. We were doing projection. So that's really where it started. At one point in time, we didn't even have musicians. So it was just like me and Cubase ramping my dad up. My dad and and I'm in there pressing a button and he's hollering, I'm pressing another button. And then next thing you know, I had a full loop of shouting music, and we was getting it, boy. I'm telling you.
Oh, wow.
So
talk about using what you have.
Yeah, so we had to use what we had, and we grew from there. And then when we left the area where I'm originally from, which is Connecticut, we moved down to Houston, Texas, and he didn't necessarily start a church right away. So the church we were going to, I was like, hey man, I've been doing this in my life and all this stuff. The dude asked me if I went to school. And I'm like, school? Like, what you even talking about? Like, I didn't even know you could go to school for audio engineering. So that's when like something had hit me. So I got online. And at that time, it was basically Art Institute, Full Sail. And then I found another smaller school, which was Media Tech Institute. It was cheaper. It was a little bit easier on me and my parents' pockets. It's a 1-year certification. I went there, did my thing, but it really had got me into music because you had to find people to record.
Right.
And, so I started a publishing company. I started a label. Long story short, everybody started having children. We couldn't do the $50 freestyles, like nobody was making any money. So I sold my publishing company and back to the drawing board, got on the internet, just Googled audio engineering, or at the time, Craigslist. I got on Craigslist, typed in audio engineering. And then that's what led me into, I guess, a more traditional sense of audio and visual technology because I started working in hotels.
Right.
Right. So I always knew I wanted to be in live because that was my bread and butter. Like in church, you created an experience. And
right.
After music died, I was like, well, maybe I could be the front of house tour for Beyonce or somebody. I don't know. But when I started working in hotels, I quickly found out that I do not like load ins and load outs. Right. Like I was doing the grunt work before they would even let me touch the board. It was like a year before they even let me touch the board. Let me
say amen for you.
So it was like, okay, maybe I can get an in-house position. And then that's what really took it to the next level. I ended up getting an in-house AV position at a multi-purpose facility. And it was full-time. It was about 8 full-time people. But we had a stadium, an arena, a conference center, and a theater. So every day I was doing something new, whether it was digital signage, directing a football game, doing camera work for a football game, audio, theater lights for a nutcracker play. We had a church that would come in and out of that facility too every Sunday morning. So it was just a lot going on. And I realized, okay, well, I'm doing a lot of cool stuff. Why don't I just share this on my social media instead of talking smack with my friends all day on there? Let's see if I can use this to propel my career, because I hit a pay cap, like I hit a pay gap, or cap, I should say. I was never going to be my boss in like the next 10, 15 years, right? So I was what am I going to do now? So I started talking about what I was doing, putting myself out there, going to events and creating content. And I created content very differently from what other people were doing. So it just grew into like this snowball effect of putting myself out there to try and have to introduce myself less and create more opportunities to grow my career. So that's the short version of the journey.
That was a winding road.
Yeah.
It was a
winding road.
What I kind of hear is that through you sharing your experiences on social media presented opportunities that were coming your way because you were sharing your experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of journalists, especially in this space, they were maybe in the industry at one point, but I was leveraging kind of becoming a journalist and leveraging my technical background. Like, hey, I'm not just saying, look at this new product because such and such has an ad in a publication or whatever, right? I'm saying, look at this and how cool it is because I use it and it helped me in my daily workflow. So I was able to talk the tech, but I also was able to present it in a different kind of informal content kind of way to where it was just adding value.
Adding value is probably the most important thing that people don't realize what content creation is. How would you define, if you had to define content creation, what would you say it is?
If I had to define content creation, I guess if we're talking on the broad scope of everything, right? Just anybody who's listening, content creation is basically how you tell your story. And that could be your own personal story. It could be the story of a company you work for. It could be the story of something you love to eat, right? We all love foodies. I love foodies. And that's kind of what I tried to make my content around, right? Foodie videos are exciting. People like watching those, just like travel vlogs. But it has to be authentic to you. So whatever you're putting out to the world, that's a form of content creation. And I look at it as we are the content, right? So share your story, and then that becomes the content. That's content creation.
So when somebody comes to you and say, I need some assistance with social media or content creation, which is kind of like the buzzword of the day, I'm a content creator. Like, what does that mean? You got a phone? Like,
right. Exactly.
Is that what it means? Is that the criteria? Like, so what are the normal steps that, I guess, question that you ask someone who would like to utilize you in that format?
Yeah, my first question is always, what's the mission? What's the plan? What's the strategy? Like, what is it that you're actually trying to accomplish? Are you just trying to put content out for the sake of content? Because that never really works, right? Unless you're doing something that is a very broad scope, like the hot sauce challenge, right? Like that's people just like watching that, right? I'm not really sure what the goal was, but that company is making money, right? They knew what their goal was. So with content, when people come to me and ask for help, it's like, all right, what is the end goal? Let's work backwards of what you're trying to accomplish. And then that tells me where they're at. Like, okay, should I get involved, or are they not there yet? Right. Everything that I've done as far as content creation has been very strategic and done over a lot of years. So the first thing I'm asking is, what's the mission? What are your pillars, right? What are the 3 things you want to talk about within this scope of content? And then how do you want to do it? Because everybody isn't comfortable being on camera. Everybody isn't comfortable writing. Everybody isn't comfortable doing a podcast. So what form of train are you going to use to push this content forward?
Right.
And then what's your major channels, right? Social has to be wrapped up into this strategy. And if somebody tells me Facebook, 9 times out of 10, I'm out. Like, I get that Facebook is extremely powerful for a lot of people, but ever since my parents got on Facebook, I got out of there.
Hilarious. That is hilarious. She's like, Facebook is the misnomer. Like,
yeah, I'm not.
You just removed yourself from the conversation.
Yeah, but see that was a long time ago when I used social media differently, just on there talking smack, saying whatever, right? So it's like, nah, I never just got back to Facebook for some reason.
That's funny. It's funny when you say that about your family, because my older brother, like, ever since he found Facebook,
yeah,
it is like every day. Like him everywhere. Hey, I'm walking.
Man,
hey, look, I'm outside.
There's a group of people, like a generation, actually, I feel like, that loves Facebook. I bet you everybody's parents has a Facebook.
My mother-in-law, like, comments on stuff on Facebook, and I'm like, the funny thing about, I know this is a detour, but the funny thing about Facebook with older folk is that they think they're talking to real people.
They really do.
My mother-in-law, I went to her house, and she's talking to my wife, and she's like, yeah, I was talking, I commented with William. It was like, who's William? William, the guy on he was on your thing, and he's going through a tough time. And
exactly.
and I'm like, but you don't know who this person is.
Exactly.
Yes, I sent them some hearts. I think I'm out.
I'm out. Exactly.
I'm out.
My grandmother is on Facebook. My grandfather is on Facebook. That's more of like a, if I was ever to go back to Facebook, it'd probably be more for the personal family aspect, because my family, we're all over the place, right? But at the same time, I could just pick up my cell phone and just give it a call. I don't want to talk to my grandma on Facebook. You're like, come on.
I got you. Yeah. The funny thing is, it's even the etiquette. So I remember, I know we're way off, but I remember, because this is so funny. I remember my older brother responding to something and then putting his phone number in the comments. and so I call him. I was like, what are you doing? He's like, I just needed to make sure that you had my number. I'm like, but I have your number. But why would you leave it in the comments? Like, that's a messenger thing, or just text me. He was like, so everybody saw it?
Exactly.
Yeah, everybody saw it. Everybody has your number. Why don't you just go delete that? You can delete it? I'm like, okay. Like you said, I'm out.
Yeah, I'm out. But like I said, for some people, it's a really good space, right? There are a lot of good groups that you can utilize, right? So if
Yes.
Facebook is your jam, then let it be your jam. Find the right groups, find the right community, and ante up there, right? But for me, I was out.
That's that. That is so apropos. So inside of the box of, I guess, platforms,
Mm-hmm.
what do you say is the most effective? I guess it would be depending on the business.
Depending
Is
on
that
the
the best way
business.
to say it?
Yeah, definitely depending on the business. At one point for me, it was Twitter, right? And then a shift came and it was LinkedIn. And I realized that LinkedIn is the best platform for people who are in B2B industries, right? It just operates differently. And out of all the social platforms, it has less noise, right? Because usually people don't use LinkedIn unless they're looking for a job. But if you utilize it like any other social platform, of course, leaving the politics aside, you can actually get further, in my opinion, in possibly a shorter amount of time.
That's
It's
I
just
never
less
thought
noise.
of it that way.
Yeah, it's less noise, and everybody's not posting there every day, showing their kids, showing their mamas. Like it's just less noise. And Twitter is very fast, right? That's a shorter format, so people are posting hundreds of times a day, right? It's just LinkedIn is just a place where I feel it's a little bit more balanced because
Gotcha.
half of the people don't even use it properly.
That's true. That's true. And a lot of it is like you have more real connections on
Exactly.
LinkedIn than you would have on, I would probably say, on any other platform,
In my
because usually
opinion, yeah.
everyone's there for a reason.
Yep.
Not just because it's popular.
And for a business reason too, right? Everybody's on some platform for a reason, whether it's to talk to your mom, whether it's to create reels, whatever the case is. But LinkedIn is the place where everybody's there for business, no matter what.
Right. So what are the common roadblocks that you run into other than you're out on Facebook? So
roadblocks when it comes to like creating content.
I would say roadblocks when getting people to understand.
That is the roadblock, right? I just stopped trying to force it on people. Now I could be into the point to where I could be selective on which brands I work with. One, because I do have a day job, right? So it's not like this is a full-time gig. And
right.
Two, it's a part of the strategy, right? Does this brand align with my vision? Does this brand, do our missions align in some form or fashion? Does it have a personal connection to me, right? That's something that's in particular, because when I'm passionate about something, that just shows. I don't have to force it to be like, oh, check this out because this person paid me. Like, no, check this out because it has impacted my life in some form or fashion. And it can also impact a lot of people like us, where we come from, if they know about this too. So really that's always my main focus. But if I had to say something that's a challenge, not necessarily a roadblock, is being able to stay consistent with the creating the content, right? That's a challenge that people aren't really aware of. They say, oh, Alesia, you're doing so great. You've just been putting out all this content, but you don't know all the back end work that goes on to it. And I'm sure people come at you like that too, because you got the swag, you got your podcast been running for so long and it's extremely consistent. You know what I'm saying? So people are always like, oh yeah, he's got it together, but they don't see what we're doing late night, midday, on our lunch break, or whatever the case is, right? They're not seeing all of that. So that's something that people should be mindful of. And that's why it's important to pick one platform, pick your 3 pillars that you're going to talk about. So that way you're not always like, flapping around trying to bring things together, you give yourself more of a structure if you know exactly what you're talking about and exactly who you're trying to talk to. But I'm kind of past the point of getting people to understand why content is important. It's like, all right, you don't get it yet. You'll be back 3 years later when you see what I've done. And that's exactly what's happened, right? You didn't get it. Right. You didn't get it at that time, but now you want to work. Well, all right. Yesterday's price is not the same.
It's not
so
today's price.
So
thank you, Fat Joe.
Exactly. So, I mean, but it's part of the journey. You invest in yourself. Other people see that and then they want to be a part of it. Like, it's just like a wildfire. It spreads over time if you stay with it.
So when you assess, like, because when you start using social media, I mean, like all of us, it was kind of like the Wild Wild West. Like you said, like Twitter was like the fast thing, and then Instagram came, then Vine came, and then, then stories came, and then, now Reels are the thing. And so when you look at someone's page, and what are you looking for prior to saying, like, oh, let me check you out and see if I want to work with you? What are you looking for?
I'm looking for their story. Can they clearly define their story? I'm also looking for vision, right? Like just all around creativity. Or is that going to be something that's going to be heavy lifting for me to do? Is that why you're calling me? Because that's the heavy lifting you want me to do, right? I'm assessing it that way. And then I'm also looking at engagement. Like a lot of people look at social and they go, oh, what's the follower count, right? I don't care about following count. Like, even there, you can read all these blogs out there about influencers, but still micro influencers are still one of the most powerful people in the world because they have the most engagement, not because they have the most followers. So engagement is always something that I'm looking at because I don't have a lot of followers. I've in the grand scheme of things, I'm considered a micro influencer, and that's okay, right? I just want that engagement because that's where you get the interaction and connecting with people. And I think that's what all of this is about anyways, right? Touching people. I know that I'm not going to have any children in my lifetime. So my legacy is touching people, right? And affecting people. So that engagement is extremely valuable. And not only to me as a person, but to brands, right? That's why they hire me. They see that engagement because anybody could post all day and get so many likes or whatever, or have so many followers. But if there's no engagement, then what's the point?
Right. So how would you define, like I had this conversation with someone maybe a few months ago when it applies to churches and brands and people, this person was, old school and said, I don't know, we have Kellogg's and we got oatmeal, that's a brand. And then we got Cheerio, that's a brand. Now, Honey Cheerio, that's real good, that's real good right there. Now, when it comes to the church ain't no brand, boy. What the church is a church. And I'm trying to explain to this elderly gentleman, sir, what you put out there is your brand. So I said, who's your demo? Now, we had demolition in the kitchen in the back there one time. And they took out the sink and I'm like, no, sir, your demographic. So what do you say to that for other than kick them to the curb because they're on Facebook? Other than that, like what do you say?
You know what? I dealt with that a lot, especially being a consultant in the house of worship space, right? Because churches, right, we deal with a lot of volunteers. We deal with people who don't necessarily understand the technology. So that is definitely a pain point of trying to speak in layman's terms when you're trying to get people to buy into something. From a brand perspective, they're never going to look at it that way. You have to find out what's important to them, right? Is it getting more views on their social streams? Is it getting more tithes and offering? Like we got to talk about it. It is what it is, right? If there's more viewers online, that's more people in pews and in seats, and then ultimately that's more tithes and offering, right? That's expanding your congregation. That's you touching more people with the word of God. Okay, so instead of approaching it as a brand, you have to talk to them in the way they understand it. Like you want a larger congregation, right? This is how we do this. This is how we obtain this. And these are the technology pieces we need to put in place so you can continue to spread the word of God to the masses, right? They are never going to get brand unless they're a younger pastor, right?
Yes.
They're never going to get brand. They're never going to get any of that. So for the older generation, it's talking their talk, honestly, right? You could spend all day trying to tell them about the brand and all of this. And the older generation technically
I want to commend you for holding your laugh because I thought I was going to lose. I thought I almost had you. I thought I said, I almost had her.
No, that sounded like my uncle. You ain't about to get me caught up. He called me asking why I'm laughing at him on the church sound podcast. Nope. It was a little too close to home. I didn't know if you was talking about my folks or not. But it's all about perception and how you present those ideas to them, right? You have to figure out what pulls at their heartstrings, right? And God is always at the heartstring. Okay, so the word of God, how are we spreading that? This is how we can do that, Pastor. Right.
Right.
But when you get into the younger generations, of course, are you familiar with Think Media?
Yes.
Though, I mean, those guys, they're all church people. And what they've done is pretty amazing, because now that everybody is tied into them because they've added so much value, people who aren't even Christian or religious watch them now. And now they're they're consulting churches on how to build a brand or build an audience or spread the word of God further. Right. So it really just depends on the demographic of who, your pastor or the pastor that you're working with is trying to touch.
Right.
That it depends on their perspective.
I kind of tie it back to, you understanding church culture. That's one thing. You understanding technology on a whole, and then understanding specifically social media and how to garner an audience based around the message.
Right.
How do you look at it from like color schemes, or like how do you look at it in that way? Because a lot of times people don't understand that color really plays a big part in that.
That took me a long time to figure out, to be honest with you. Just the colors, right? Like a color pattern, right? And trying to figure out how to brand that. But I tell people, don't dwell on that at first. It'll come to you as you grow into what the brand actually should be and you want it to be, right? At first, if you're starting off, do not dwell on that. It'll come. It'll come, because I spent a lot of time paying people for logos, paying people for this, and honestly, what it ended up being was me getting on Canva with some font and changing some colors here and there. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be this full blown thing. It comes in time, and I think a lot of people just overthink that. Right? They're like, "Oh, my brand, my brand, my brand." Okay, your brand isn't the logo though. The brand is you. So what's the message? The message is more important than a color scheme or the branding. That comes in time. But if you don't start, then nothing happens, right? So start, build it, then that will come naturally. And that just happened to me about a year ago, right? I went back and forth for what my podcast should look like. What, should I put my face on it? Should I not put my face on it? And then I realized 90% of the time, if my face is on it, it gets over 100% engagement. If my face is not on it, then it doesn't work, because people know me as the brand, right? You have to figure out what your audience ties into. Is it your face? Is it your color scheme? Is it your logo? That comes over time. I mean, like Gary Vee, like we know the Gary Vee logo, but we don't know his company's logo. Most people, if they seen his company logo branded on something, they wouldn't even know what it is. They wouldn't know
they wouldn't. Yeah, right.
They wouldn't know that was Gary Vee was involved with this. This is his company. Exactly. So I mean, it comes over time. It is a harder part of the process, but I think what I did was I learned myself more. Like, I'm learning myself every day and working on my personal growth, which aligns with my career growth, which aligns with my brand growth. And then it all starts coming together. So don't dwell on that small stuff. Don't go spend hundreds and thousands of dollars at first. You got to build it. And then when you really hone it and start to know what it really is, then you're like, all right, you know what? This color green, I think I like that. I think that's rocking with me, It's a process.
The thing is, like you said something earlier about like people don't understand what goes on behind the scenes, like late nights and early mornings, like we're doing now. What goes on to create the content and the sacrifice you make to be consistent, because it's a sacrifice to be consistent. My show goes up on Tuesday and Friday.
You cold with it too.
So
you cold with it. Like I'm not even there yet. You know what I'm saying? You cold with it. It's a level of consistency.
And you have to, and I say this to people, like, because you get podcasters who'll say, "Hey man, I love what you do, and how can I do it?" And my first response is, "Can you do 100 shows in a row?" If you can't do 100 shows in a row, then stop talking to me.
Yep. And that's real.
If you can't do that, and then and this is actually my brother said this to me, my younger brother. He was like, 100 shows. I said, right there, you already know you can just stop talking to me. I'm about to go get something to eat.
Right.
So this stop talking to me,
but that's
because
a stat.
already.
That's a stat, right? They say most podcasters don't make it past either the 35 mark, and then the rest of them usually don't make it past the 100 episode mark. So you're right. If you can't do that, if you're not willing to even invest in that, then you're not willing to see it through, because it takes at least 100 just to get settled. Yeah. Like just to get settled.
Yeah, that's the truth. Because I look at downloads, and you think like, oh, this show's gonna get a lot of downloads, and then you look at your library, you go like, huh?
Yep.
You look at a show from like 2 years ago, and like, huh? People still listen to that show, and you get a bunch of downloads from certain region. You're like, how did that? But that's where the 100 episodes come in, because it's called catalog.
Yep, exactly.
You're building a catalog of content.
You're building, and that's what people don't want to do. They look at you, they look at people like me, they look at other people on the internet, and they want that instantly, like that instant gratification. But people don't know how long these sweat, blood, and tears have gone into this. It's been some days where I'm just crying, really, to be like, forget all of this, forget all of it. But can't quit, persistence.
If you quit, it's over.
Exactly. It's completely over.
It's completely over. So there's no such thing as that.
Exactly. So persistence for sure, and
persistent.
You got to make up your mind about it too.
Yes, and I also find that even when I'm talking to churches, it's the level of commitment that you're looking from. Just in a conversation, just in an initial conversation, like, what do you want? What's your end goal? When do you want to reach this goal? Say June. Okay, so what do you want to see happen in June? Okay, and you said something earlier, like work backwards, and I'm a firm proponent of that. Like, you work backwards. Okay, this is the goal. Okay, let's work back to the steps to this date.
Right.
On the cookie crumbs that need to happen for this end result to happen. And a lot of times, I can't say a lot of times, I say in some conversations I've had, is that they were not willing to have that type of conversation on the details of the steps, and then which kind of led me to believe that you're really not serious. You thought it would just add water and stir it up.
Right. And I mean, this goes to kind of a conversation we had off the call, but even like strategy is extremely important to me in every single aspect of my life, because that's how I've built, my platform to what it is today. So if you say, okay, this is the job, this is, what we want to do, but there's no strategy, there's no direction, then that lets me know, okay, all right, I need to get somewhere else. We need to figure something out, or find some different clients, find some different teams to work with that know what they want to do, because that's the people I can get with. I can help you get there. But if you don't have any strategy, I'm not going to make it for you, because I'm too busy working on my own strategy. Everybody's got their own stuff going on. Like, I'm not going to build the strategy for you. You have to. And that was something that I struggled with early on, especially when I was in music. I see the potential in things. And it's like, man, if this person just wanted it as bad as I wanted it for them, they might be successful. And then I've realized I was wasting all my time pouring into other people, and then my cup was empty. And then that's when I was like, all right, I'm an audio engineer. I don't have any artists. What can I do? The churches pay decent, right? But I can't live my life like this. I'm not going to be able to sustain, right? I'm empty. And then that's when I found the industry, right? It's like, okay, well, I can be an AV sales engineer at this company. I could be in business development at this company, right? And still be in audio, even though I don't run a board every day. I'm still in the audio field. So sometimes it's just a pivot too, like, all right, this isn't working out. These people don't want it as bad as I do. All right, how do I pivot in my own lane and still make this work?
And still maintain your authenticity, which you have.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think is super cool. Like from the time I said hi to you, I already knew, like, immediately. It was like kind of immediate, very immediate. Yo, I forget homie who
I'll say
introduced
shout out
us.
to Jason. Shout out to Jason.
Yeah, Jason introduced us, and I was talking to him. He said, "I have somebody you need to meet."
that's my guy.
I was like, okay. I was like, hey, what's up? And it was like really immediate. I was like, oh yeah, she cool. I definitely gotta have her. Yeah. We gotta talk. We gotta vibe.
Exactly. And it was crazy because I think Jason, you and I might have been like the few people of color at the event. So it was already like we was sitting there talking to our cousins anyways.
We roll back the Rolodex in my mind. I will probably say we were the Three Musketeers.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. But that's what it's about. Like, I actively want to connect with us in this space. You know what I mean? So we can lift each other's voices up. But as soon as we met, I knew it was popping. That's why I was like, "What's your information?" And I didn't want to leave not connected to you because I knew this was going to happen. Whether it was now, 3 years from now, whatever, I knew this was going to happen. And I mean, that's what it's about: us staying connected, keep working, and keep telling our stories.
Yeah, you said something really important, and I learned something in our initial conversation.
Really?
You said to me, you asked me a question, and I started to use this. So thank you. Yeah. You said, "What is your preferred form of communication?"
Right.
What platform are you on LinkedIn? And I was like, yeah. How do you like being text or phone call? Or
because that's important to me. Because if I know that this is somebody I want to be connected with, I knew in that moment. I said, all right, this is a man I need to know. This is a man I want to continue to know. This is a man that I want to work with in some form or fashion. All right, if that's the case, then I need to know your preferred method so I can reach out to you the way you want to be reached out to, instead of sending you a bunch of emails, never hear back from you, or writing you on a platform that you don't use. That's a waste of time. Let's get straight to it. How you want to chop it up?
Right.
All right. Now we chopping it up.
Right. But that's strategic. So what I'm trying to tell the listeners is like, even in that informal meeting that we had, you were still strategic in the moment. So you were completely aware. So this is what we call a mode of operation. This is how you function.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's to be applauded, because a lot of people don't see it that way. I grabbed it immediately. I said, oh, okay. I put the card in my pocket. I said, taking that one home.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Kevin Hart, he did a podcast, or it was either Kevin Hart or Nick Cannon. He said, "Oh, what are you networking for if you're not going to reach out? Like, what's the point of saying, oh, I met so and so, like." What is the point of that if we're not going to do any work? Like, networking is the number one pillar of my pillars that I said. I said everybody needs to have a pillar, right? Networking is the top of my triangle, right? That's how I get things done. So yeah, I guess I never noticed it, because back in high school, I was a point guard, right? I'm always looking at the entire floor. I'm looking at how everything is working out, right?
That makes sense.
So I've never thought of it asking you that question, like, oh, I'm going and being super strategic, because I was being strategic, but I also was being authentic. Like, I was being real. Like,
and right.
Bro,
that's what I said. That's you.
Yeah. So
right.
It all works hand in hand. You keep it real.
Yeah. I'm just observant.
Yeah.
I
guess so.
I like to, I'm observant, and that's it. Because initially, anybody that knows me really well, they will tell you, like, I do not talk this much.
Yeah.
Like, I put the hat on to deliver the information.
Right.
But if you're at home with me, I may say 5 words.
Right.
Or if someone's calling to talk to me, they have a reason to talk to me. Unless you're like one of my really, really close friends that get to be on the phone with me for more than 20 minutes.
Right.
And but that is, you earn that space. You know what I mean? You earn that space with me. And that's how I function. But if I connect with somebody immediately, I think I hit you like the next day. I'm like, hey, what's up? Thanks. Good. Nice meeting you. Because I knew immediately. I said, oh yeah, I gotta chop it up with her.
Right. Exactly. That's what it's about. Networking. You catch that vibe in the moment, right? But the bread and butter is in the follow up, right? People, they just go and say, oh, I went to this dope event last night. I was at church. We had a good time. I met sister so-and-so. Okay, but are y'all going to go to prayer together? Are y'all going, like, what is the point of meeting great people if you're not going to follow up? Like, the follow-up is extremely important. Like you said, people come to you, they don't have an idea of what they want to do. But if they were serious at that moment, say they didn't know what they wanted to do, what they do is they follow up with a strategy. Right? That's how you know when people are serious, in that follow-up, right? Because I can give out my card all day, whatever. I might not hear from half of those people. But the people who will follow up are the right people.
Right.
It's a process.
So, it's a process. So let's just bring this home.
Yeah.
If a church, not a person, a church wanted to utilize social media as a medium, like where would you, what's the conversation aside from what we said earlier, like on a personal note, what would you say?
If it's a church coming to me, not a person, I'm going to say you need to be on Instagram and you need to be on Facebook. Why? Because there's a lot of church Facebook groups, right? There's a lot of prayer groups. There's a lot of, young church people on it, right? There's all these groups. And then Instagram, you need to be doing reels on there, right? I have never seen church so front and center. Like the Church of Laugh, right? You got the churchy experience. You've got Kev on stage, who is extremely churchy. You know what I'm saying? He's a believer, right? I've never, Chrissy, Sister Chrissy.
Yeah,
I have never seen church so on this grand stage. Not saying that it will be easy, but it's easier now to get that message out there because it's more acceptable, right?
Gotcha.
People run. Back in the day, like if we had to put videos up of people running around, falling out, like,
oh gosh,
you know what I mean? Like that would have been so, like, nobody was streaming the shouting part. You were only streaming the message, right? You weren't getting the praise and worship. You weren't getting the choir. You weren't getting all of that. But now, because everything is right here,
computer in your pocket,
like. Now that it has everything right there, you need to be on these platforms because you know why? If I see something exciting that happened at your church, I don't even care if it was you showing me that the pastor fell off the pew. That's funny. And if that's in my city, I'm going. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going. Like everything, even things that you might perceive as like, oh, we don't need to show that to the world. Pastor fell. That's not funny. Hey. It might flock people to you that need to hear what you have to say. It might change their heart and their relationships with God, So if this is a church coming to me saying they want to get on social media, again, I'm going to ask the why. But if they know the why and the how, who's going to do it, then I'm telling them to get on Instagram or Facebook.
Amazing. So how can people get at you?
Yeah, if you want to get at me, it's at The Smooth Factor. Nobody else has that at name. If you Google at The Smooth Factor, you'll find me. My website, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, all of that. But I guess if you're on social media and you do utilize LinkedIn, write me a LinkedIn message. That's like sending me a text message because I'm on that thing all day.
And I'm a witness.
I'm on it all day.
I can attest to this. I can attest to this. And so all information will be in the show notes. Make sure you go there, click it, share, do what you got to do. She's there for service to help you move things forward for your ministry, for your person, whatever it is that you're trying to do. I believe in connecting people, and so this is our first connection of many. That we're going to be doing a lot of stuff. Before we get out of here, I have this segment called 30 Seconds and Gone.
Oh, man. Here we go.
30 seconds gone. True, false, yes, no questions. Are you ready?
We ready.
Question number 1. What mixer did you learn on?
Oh, what mixer did I learn on? Oh, damn. Look, now you got me cussing on the Church Sound podcast. I think it was a Midas. Can't remember.
Midas. Ooh.
Yeah, it was a Midas.
Ooh, learn on the Midas. Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, question number 2. What artist are you waiting to drop? What artist you waiting for to drop?
Masego.
Okay. Favorite childhood cereal?
Favorite childhood cereal? Captain Crunch.
Captain Crunch. Crunch berries or plain?
Plain. No berries.
Plain. No crunch berries. Okay, there it is. Okay. Question number 4. Nike, Adidas, New Balance, or Vans?
Nike.
Nike. Okay. Last question. Well, I know you watch sports. What's your team?
My team right now is the Clippers. That's where Westbrook is.
Woo, she's at the Clips.
Yeah, my Clipper jersey in the mail right now.
She's at the Clips. Not from VA, the Clippers. Not the Clips. The Clippers.
The Clippers. Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, cats and dogs over age, I want to thank my sister Alesia Hendley. I said her name right.
You said it, got it right.
That is right.
Yes, it is.
I got it right?
Yep.
There it is. There it is. Hey, like, subscribe, review. I'm going to say, like I always say, keep God first in everything you do. We see you next time on the Church Sound Radio Podcast.